Hey everyone, Josh Peatfield here. Recently, I released a collection of poetry that I wrote called Practice Poems, originally written in this little red notebook. I thought, since it's my first time putting something up for sale, other than the bacon poem, which was more of an experiment, and I didn't get any money from that because Amazon is awful and Jeffrey Bezos is the devil. I decided I'd do a little reading for you. See if we can get into some of these poems that I wrote, do a little sampler, and then if you like some of them, you can go online, joshpeatfield.com, buy it. It's just an ebook. You can get it in an EPUB format where you can open it up on your iPad or your computer, and it opens up, works just like a ebook should, where you can flip the pages and stuff. It's pretty cool. I worked pretty hard on it. And for those of you who read exclusively on Kindles, there's a PDF format that you can just open up on anything too, and just read like that. I mean, I made it pretty easy, which is strange because I don't like publishing poetry. Seems like something very personal, something very niche, something like either like the style or the content or you like hate it. Like there's no middle ground with poetry. I know I am that way. I mean, I get offended sometimes, and it's stuff that a lot of people have thought was really, really good, and I had a different opinion. What is this, a vlog? I don't mean to be releasing my whole life story here. I was just gonna read some poems, some poetry, and then maybe you'd read them. And maybe I'll talk about them a little bit too. Maybe I'll talk about some of the book as a whole, All right, let's get into it. So for those of you who do end up buying this, don't get worried that it starts on poem number 3. So originally, each one of the poems in that little notebook was numbered. So it goes 1, 2, I think, and it took up 2 notebooks for the most part, up to like 75 or something. For this collection, I weeded out the ones, like I edited them all, and then I reread them all, and then whatever I rolled my eyes at, I just took it out. I was just like, I don't know, I didn't really love reading that. Why am I going to make other people read it? So let's take a look. There are different sort of like periods and genres. You can tell like when I was working on something. So it's called Practice Poems for a reason, and I talk about it a little bit in my introduction where it started as a release for me. I was just working a desk job and I wasn't feeling like a writer anymore, like right after what I had considered one of my more creative eras, right? I was writing short stories, like crazy. I was writing for friends, I was writing scripts, everything, and then just all of a sudden I got this desk job and I was focusing more on some other creative endeavors where like the writer part just sort of really took a dive, and I found myself in a really bad headspace around 2015, 2016, and I had one experience one day that again I write about in the introduction to this. And I just went straight to an office supply store, bought a couple of notebooks, and I just started whenever I was feeling like I wasn't being my true creative self. I would just like force myself, sit down, write down what I was feeling, or just be like, dude, you gotta write something. So that's what I did, and I just numbered the poems in this little red notebook, and yeah, but again, don't get freaked out when I skip from like number 46 to 53 or something, because you don't want to read the ones that I took out. I promise you. All right? I mean, trust me, it was enough of a hassle for me to put all of these out. Imagine ones that I didn't even like. Anyway, and even today, I'm not going to start with number 1. All right? I reread this before I started recording, and I started looking through some of them that I thought, maybe that could hook them. And they change, some of them are love poems, not really, because I haven't been in a relationship in over a decade, and that's mostly for me, and it's probably better for the world. And yeah, this first one is number 4A. There is a 4B, but I don't feel like reading that one. Let's get into it. I'm gonna and I'm gonna who cares? This is just a thing. I'm a writer, not a presenter. This is out of my comfort zone. I'm a behind the scenes guy. All right? This is poem number 4A. Where was I when the world was whole? Where was I when our minds weren't broken? We look back to reference then, but the era must be stolen. I read the writings of greater thinkers. They chronicle their lives in a record of timeless proof. We think the people from before would arrive to a sight unimaginable. But how hard is it to believe the hate they fought then is the prison our souls are captive in now? We ache for the genuine, but we hide from the truth. Our shackles glow and ring as eerie Dickensian apparitions. Our issues evolve with us and are offered as solutions. Not bad, right? I wonder what was going on in the world then, 2015, 2016, talking about people talking about better eras coming before us. That's so weird. That's timely even. Maybe this is a more appropriate time to be investigating those feelings because we're not in it and we feel a little bit more reprieved, even though, is anything even really better? We'll find out. Yeah, that was a pretty good one, I thought, but who am I to say? I'm just trying to sell this thing or not sell this thing. Let's look on. I didn't want to read 4B. Let's see. Some of these are still, I did leave there. I will get accused sometimes of being a little pretentious, I bet. At some point. Some of these are a little bit much. Even I'll admit that. Some of them are sad. Some of them are super short. Don't worry about that. All right? That's what poetry is. It's whatever I want. I play with form a couple of times. It's pretty cool. I don't want to read that one. I talk about, there are some times where I'm dealing with self-image, who I am, my weight, if you're into that thing. I write a lot. You'll see, before I moved out of my parents' house, I wrote quite a few about, the feeling of being at home, still living at home. Even though at the time I knew that was where I should be. I was saving money. It led me to be where I am now, where I have my own place and I'm working at a job that is my day job that's a lot better for me and allows me a little bit more freedom to be my creative self in the off hours. But, there was some times where the pressure of expectation, from society, or my perceived expectation would kind of bring me down. Like, oh my God, I still live at home. At the time, I was like 25, So I wrote a bit about that. Let's see. Oh, there are some that I had previous released. Number 45 is actually already up on my website in the originals. So joshpeatfield.com/originals. You can read. I released that one. I had experienced a loss, and it was one I had already written, and I kind of was going back in the editing phase, and sometimes I would just flip through the notebook to see if I had already experienced something like this before, and sometimes reading my own stuff, as cringeworthy as other people might find it, sometimes it's cathartic for me, knowing that I've been through these things before, and I somehow got through them. But number 45 was one of those that I threw up there, and you can preview it now. So I don't have to read that one. You can read that one yourselves. Great. Now I'm just stalling for time. Oh, some of these are things that I wrote on, I released some of them like on my Twitter, but my Twitter's not that hot, I think I made it private too, so I'm not really an avenue. I'm not, the idea of being like one of these, getting my stuff read by doing work on social media like Twitter and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of exhausting just to think about, and I don't want to do it. This is kind of a hassle right now, but I also want your $7, which is how much this thing cost. I said around 70 poems, $7. I'm sure the math adds up. somewhere. Let me see. So this one. I'll read number 32. This was something that I tweeted. It came to me. This was during a period where I was sort of questioning the path that I was on. Well, I'll let the poem explain itself. Number 32. I'm starting to get to the points on the river others told me I'd reach, but was too hopeful or headstrong to believe that was my course. I was watching from the shoreline as they waited in the depths. The waters of wisdom flow bittersweet from the source. It's a little Twitter poetry for you. Obviously after they expanded Twitter so you could have like the 260 characters or whatever, because it's a little long. All right. Ooh, number 34. I like that one, but I'm not going to read it. It's long. Number 38. So some of these actually have titles along with them too. Number 38 is entitled Appeasement. And it was sort of, I was looking around at, the world has been on fire for the past, half a decade plus, a little bit more, probably a couple of centuries. And, people were going up on stages for award shows, and it looked like small changes were being given to those who were asking for it, but really it was just sort of superficial. I was getting tired of it. I was like, no real change was being enacted, and it turns out that would be a continuing theme from what I can tell for the rest of our lives. So I wrote a 4-page poem called Appeasement about that. It's a little wordy. That's probably another one that's a little pretentious, but deal with it. One question I'll answer now. I've written about it already on the Facebook page, but the bacon poem is not included on this edition. All right, I had already put that up for sale before, like I mentioned earlier, and now it's up for free on the originals. It just felt like this was its own thing. I wanted to contain this idea with that. All right, and it's almost kind of like a bookend, all right? Because I wrote the bacon poem years ago, kind of got a little bit of traction, it was pretty popular, and then everything happened and I started getting into these poems, this little collection. And I wrote these, I started working on form, style, voice, all those things. And after I wrote these, I wrote a poem that I released on my website last year, maybe during the shutdown, called White Boy Told Me. And kind of the reason I call these practice poems is because I feel like they led to me writing that one. So if you haven't read that one, that's also up on the originals page. That's sort of like the bookend to these. It's like bacon poem, kind of silly, but still like, flexing some legit poetry muscle skills. And then all these practice ones. And then I felt very confident when I got to White Boy Told Me. And I'm very proud of that one, especially, because it made my mom cry. All right. Some of them rhyme, not a lot of them rhyme. I am of the schools of, Kerouac and Bukowski a little bit, and, I'm a little bit less of an asshole, but. Number 44. I'll read this one. I think I'll read this one. The lilacs are back outside my window. Funny how as they bloom, they look as though they've already passed. They remind me of the summer after we danced in the heat. I had hung my suit on a chair by the window. There it stayed all season, gathering pollen, while I was off with you and not caring about a thing. And then the autumn came, and I was left with a yellow suit and some memories. How warm that summer was, and bright, as if the rays of the sun themselves rolled, intertwined with the lilac breeze. In through the window to our pillows. Funny how love has passed, even when it looks in bloom. Funnier still how the summers that followed found me allergic to the very flower outside my window. But even this peaked and passed. As the summers insist on continuing, I grow strong enough to open the window a bit more, still in discomfort, but coping. See, I wrote some love poems in there, kind of like a sad love poem though, I guess. That's pretty good. It's number 44, so I guess I probably dedicated that one to Barack Obama. Not too many. I went through my poetry phase. That's number 45 I'm looking at. I mean, my nature phase. You know, I'm like, oh my goodness, am I one of the, you know, what, you know the word I'm looking for. Ends in IST. Transcendentalists. I'm dropping some, like, great references. I'm an impressive person. Let me see. And then, you know, I went back to, like, oh, I'm feeling older than my years. I went through one of those phases. A few more love things. Some dark, number 50, pretty sad. Pretty dark. And then a fun sort of chapter-ish, a little collection, starting in number 51 and going until like 55. I had like a little short, like, you know, like the drinking poems, you know, like poems that I wrote when I was drinking, you know. Every poet's got to have one of those, right? I feel like I'm one of the greats because I have like one of those, but people who know me, I don't really drink that often. And I have a line that I like to say, you know, people ask me if I want to go out and drink. I say, no, I'll stay home and drink alone like an adult, you know? That was one of those nights, one of those rare nights. And I just wrote like 4 or 5 poems just about, you know, pretending to be one of those classic drunk writers, even though I prefer Coca-Cola. 56 was another one. 56 was actually written around the time that I released number 45, 56, and 57. I was going through some grief at that time. I wonder if I'll do one more. Let me skip to the end here. I'm sure this is riveting. Me looking down at a little ebook. Great content. Bo Burnham would be proud. All right. Oh yeah, some poems about like, some long poems about, you know, depression and creativity. Classic. People love that. I kind of want to highlight some of the ones where people are going to be like, yeah, this guy's like the voice of our generation. Let me see. And I think they kind of get stronger near the end too, so that's why I'm having a harder time kind of picking one. And see, I start talking them up and I start feeling confident, and it's just me and a camera right now, and I'm like, oh yeah, like, oh, so confident. But then I'll look back at this, I'll rewatch it, not to edit because I don't know how to edit videos, so I'm just doing all this in one shot, so you're getting it in all its glory. But I'll be like, why was I talking like that? Why was I hyping it up? It's poetry. Nobody wants to. Anyway, let's take a look at number 64. And this one's kind of tough because, just so you know, it ends very stylistically with a question mark only on the last line. So I'll do it in the air. Maybe I'll try to do it backwards at the end of the poem. Let's see. It's all felt so different lately, and I wonder if life loses its luster. For those who reach the years, they were praised for being so far beyond. Which hand on the clock reads, you're not special anymore? Little emo, huh? I'm surprised I didn't write that one in high school. Ooh, this one is number 70. I wonder, again, a lot of these were written over different phases, some different years. I wonder if this one, was during the pandemic, like beginning of the pandemic, 70. I think it was. I'm such an unreliable narrator. For more unreliable narrators, you should read some of my other short stories on the originals page. Although, number 70. I made my bed today. I hope that is enough to say I lived or mattered in some real way. That someone could see, and after that, I stared at the snow, covering the usually busy road, and noticed fewer cars passing than normally speed by. So I thought, maybe everyone was slowing down today. But the only way I know to compare is from what I saw yesterday, as I watched everyone drive by. But hey, at least I made my bed. It's a little bit more lighthearted, but also sort of like ominous, especially when you get to number 72, which comes after it. Again, that's number 70. Skipped 71, probably a little bit too pretentious or way too sad and revealing, and I skipped it to 72. And also I read something a little bit weird in there. I've done it a couple of times. I probably should have practiced, but again, I don't like talking to myself, and I sort of like, I was in the mood to do this. I was like, do it now or you'll never do it, and then you'll never tell anybody you released a book of poetry. Sorry, collection of poems. It's short, it's like a chapbook. It's like 70 pages, 70-something pages. I think that'll be all of the ones that I read to you, because I do want people to maybe buy this thing. So I will end with saying, I hope you do. It's $7 on my website, joshpeatfield.com. I probably won't be releasing a whole bunch of poetry throughout my career, my life as a writer. But, you know, this is a pretty good collection. I'm pretty happy with it. It's kind of meaningful to me, and sort of my whole philosophy is, you know, if any one of those speaks to any one person in any meaningful way and maybe helps them or at least resonates with them, makes them feel something, probably worth it. And also, you know, I'm a librarian, writer, after-school music teacher, and the $7 you pay for this is kind of like charity. You know, you're supporting a local writer, or not local if you're from, you know, local if you're from New England, but like, I'm hoping people all over the world buy this so that maybe I can go on a vacation or, you know, afford my rent. Anyway, those were some readings. I spent a lot of time on the intro, and the about the author is pretty humorous, a little bit closer to what people are maybe used to seeing or reading from me. And now I'm just grasping for straws. I'm just filling up time, and God, I hope the camera has been rolling this whole time. Again, I'm not gonna edit this thing because I don't know how. I don't have the software to do that. And I decided to do this 2 days before the day that I had actually told everybody that this thing would be published, and the day that I anticipate people will actually look for it. So I want to get this thing up. Again, what is this, a vlog? I don't know. Buy my book of poetry. Fund, you know, an indie artist. I'm going to spend the rest of the summer working on some other stuff. Maybe I'll get something released in the fall, winter. I'm thinking collection of short stories, or one of the 4 novels that I've, you know, outlined but wrote part of the first chapter and then said, you know what? Nobody wants to read this, nobody likes you, and you should give up on your dreams. Forgot what I was talking about. Anyway, wrapping this video up, buy my book, joshpeatfield.com/shop. Practice poems.